$1 million. Free to play. You just need to survive. It's the Fanatics NFL Survivor Pool. Pick one team to win each week. Get it right, move on. Get it wrong, you're out. The last fan standing take home a guaranteed $1 million cash prize. And for every player who joins, we add $1 to the pot, up to $10 million. The Fanatics NFL Survivor Pool. Play free on the Fanatics app. App access open to all. Must be 21 plus and joined by 9/8 to play. No purchase necessary. U.S. only. Void where prohibited. Subject to complete terms. See fanatics.com/game rules.
It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show. Now, here's Joe Concha.
Hello, everybody. It is the Sunday of Labor Day weekend, the last day in August. Fastest summer, this is not an opinion, this is completely a fact, that we have ever had here in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, tri-state area, like ever. I mean, this thing just flew, and now, before you know it, a couple days from now, we got NFL football starting. College football already started like 10 days ago, and we're in the fall. Here we are, and I'd love to say that it was a nice, quiet August, because Congress is on recess and the president usually goes on vacation for a couple of weeks, in Biden's case, 4 years. And now everything is just moving along at a breakneck speed with President Trump, who just keeps working right through it because he wants to get as many things done as possible in his first year. That is most pivotal. Next year, of course, is the midterm year, and that tends to be even more gridlock, even though we seem to be in that place already. Nevertheless, this is a president that is just on a complete roll right now as far as getting things done and being a disruptor on all things swampy in Washington, D.C., which continues to have a crime rate that resembles, I don't know, Walnut Grove from Little House on the Prairie. Like, nothing's going on in D.C. now because we actually have resources on the ground. And more importantly, a message sent that the old days are over. The old days, and this has gone on for decades, by the way. Republican and Democrat presidents alike have allowed this to happen when they had the federal authority to do what President Trump did, which was to send National Guard troops to patrol that city. Jeanine Pirro, as you know, is serious as a prison fight. She is not standing for anything. You remember that idiot that threw a Subway sandwich at a National Guardsman recently, and they charged him with a felony. Good. And then, of course, the left is like, it was just a sandwich. That doesn't matter. You don't touch any federal officer, any law enforcement officer. You think you could just disrespect them like that on camera? You're going to get away with it? Sorry, it is zero tolerance now in D.C., and hopefully this sort of response is coming to cities like Baltimore, Chicago, and New York City next because, hey, why not? Who isn't for lower crime? Oh, right, Democrats aren't for lower crime. It's like being pro-cancer. I mean, how could you possibly say that this is a bad thing when we see carjackings down 50% in D.C., no murders for many, many days, when we used to have a murder every other day in Washington, D.C. The killing has stopped, and a message has been sent, and good for President Trump, good for Jeanine Pirro, good for the AG and Pam Bondi, and everybody else that's involved here. Now, all of that said, I mentioned Democrats before are not happy at all with this crackdown, which, again, political suicide. There is no upside to saying that we oppose, if you're a mayor like the other Brandon Johnson in Chicago, where you're saying, I'm not going to allow this. This is bad. Let's play clip one here, guys, because this is why Brandon Johnson is currently at, and this is a true stat, 6% approval in the Windy City. Cut one, go.
We cannot incarcerate our way out of violence.
Yeah, we can.
Tried that. And we've ended up with the largest prison population in the world without solving the problems of violence. The addiction on jails and incarceration in this country, we have moved past that. It is racist, it is immoral, unholy, and it is not the way to drive violence down. We cannot return to the same failed strategies that got us here in the first place. Under the previous presidential administration, we requested more federal resources to address gun violence in our city. We continue to make that same call. We have made significant progress on our own.
All right,
but there
guys.
is so much more that we can do if we had...
We're good. We get it. Let's say putting people in jail is bad, and it's racist to do so. That's the card they're playing now. I see it so often now on CNN, MSNBC, that Trump is only targeting these cities because they have black mayors, and therefore it's racist somehow. No, he's actually doing them a favor. How hard is this to understand? Chicago has lost more residents in the past 4 years than it has at any time in its history. And businesses as well. And all that tax revenue is now going to Texas, Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina. And as a result, Illinois is now going to lose 2 electoral votes. California is going to lose electoral votes. New York is going to lose electoral votes. And let's see, Rhode Island, little Rhode Island is going to lose an electoral vote. Overall, red states like Texas, like Florida, they're going to gain 7 electoral votes by the time we get to the 2032 election. If a census goes on before that, maybe even sooner for 2028. Hopefully that happens. So you're going to have red states gaining 7 electoral votes and blue states losing 7. What does that mean? It means that the Democratic nominee for president can win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. That's the blue wall, and even win Nevada and still lose unless they pick off like a North Carolina or a Georgia or an Arizona. And now that we don't have COVID as a cover of darkness, that's going to be very, very difficult. And again, those states are only going to go more redder. Obviously, Donald Trump swept those states in 2024. And if the matchup is 2028, J.D. Vance versus, say, Gavin Newsom, who appears to have the momentum right now because I guess he's snarky on social media, even though he has a horrific record in California, that'll be the choice. You either want California to resemble the country, or you want Florida to resemble the country, or Washington, D.C. to resemble the country in terms of law and order and getting things done. I'm telling you right now, if that is the matchup, Gavin Newsom could lose 51 states. I know it's mathematically impossible, but again, gel and hairspray and nice teeth only get you so far. Trust me, I know. Anyway, this is Joe Concha, back with more in just a moment, including Sean Spicer and Jack Chitterelli running for governor again in New Jersey, and he's got a really good chance. He's going to tell us why. That's next.
It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show. It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show. Now, here's Joe Concha.
Welcome back. Let's bring in Sean Spicer. He is the host of At Sean Spicer Show. You're following on Twitter. Subscribe to SeanSpicer.com. And obviously part of the threesome that makes up the two-way app and the morning meeting, which I listen to every day on my little hike with my dogs, and always great, informative stuff, and actually civilized for the most part between Dan, Sean, and Mark Halpern. Sean, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, man?
Outstanding. No complaints. Thanks for joining today. So,
who else would I rather spend Labor Day weekend than Joe Concha?
I have a feeling I can think of several people you'd probably want that to happen. Are you up north in Rhode Island doing the Coast Guard thing, or how do you spend your Labor Day?
My Coast Guard thing. No, usually if the Coast Guard's seeing me, they're boarding. They're coming aboard and saying, "Sir, we have a problem." No, I'm in Virginia. The school year has commenced, so.
Oh, wow. See, we start late in New Jersey. Like, I know my friends in Florida, they started like early August, and you guys are already back to school. We don't go back until, this coming week. So, I guess you get out earlier then, right? Like maybe like early June, because we don't get out until late June.
No. Well, first of all, we get out in May, just so it's clear. Now, here's the thing. I grew up in Rhode Island, as you know, and I think the law, tell me what you think of this, because I am a big believer that Trump should sign an executive order declaring that school shouldn't start until after Labor Day.
Yes.
That's where I come down on this. I want my summer, Joe Concha. I don't want this going back to school. Like, I think summer goes to Labor Day, and schools, I get in Virginia, we're kind of in the middle. Like, we don't go back. My wife's from Tennessee. They go back like, July 4th. And so, we go a little bit later here in Virginia, but I actually think it should be a federal law that you can't go back to school until Labor Day.
I couldn't agree more. And, you read about Labor Day, and it's a maddening thing how it came about. Basically, there's some labor unions that said back in like the late 1800s that, we should have like a day off to celebrate all the workers in this country and all the people that are in labor unions. And then like one night, they all got together and basically were overserved. And somebody said, hey, when should we do this day? And somebody goes, I don't know, I guess like the first Monday in September. Like there is no like rhyme or reason to it because September, arguably where you live, either Virginia, Rhode Island, or New Jersey, where I am, that's the nicest summer month, in my opinion. And then everything Labor Day is September 1st this year. Football's going to be starting on September 4th, NFL. College has already started. And I'm like, no, I'm not in a football mode yet because it's 85 degrees outside. It's just, you're right. I think, school should not start until after Labor Day, and Memorial Day should be more like June 21st, not like late May, because it's always too cool at that point to do anything anyway. I know I've gone off on a tangent, but I'll give you the last one.
No. This is where we this is what we should be focusing our time on. Is practical common sense things that President Trump can get by, and that's what he always talks about, common sense. So let's get this going. Start this ball. I'm going to urge President Trump to sign a executive order that schools cannot start before Labor Day.
Wow. Vinny, our producer, who's new here at WABC, he asked, does Sean Spicer still speak to the president? I go, yeah, I think you could get him pretty much on a moment's notice, right? Like you could call, he picks up, and you guys could have a conversation.
That only works so many times before. If you don't have something good to say, right, or something substantive, they're like, stop calling. But yes. So you can tell Vinny, I don't abuse the privilege. How's that?
Right. You don't want to be a stage 5 clinger, but just once in a while, if you have a good thought, this is a good thought. I think this maybe it warrants a phone call, and we're talking to Sean Spicer. So much is going on. I guess I want to talk about things more like from a macro view. We're only 8 months or so into this administration. In terms of like the 3 big successes that you could think of, what are the 3 that you would name if you were giving out awards right now? Because I would just off the top of my head, I would say the border, obviously, and getting those encounters down to basically 0. But what else would you name out there that you've seen and said, wow, this is what I voted for?
So I think number 1 is the border, right? That's what he campaigned on, and for a million reasons. It's also symbolic. Number 2, I would say the big beautiful bill, because again, the permanency of those tax rates was critical. It wasn't just renewing them for another 5 or 7 years. Making all that stuff permanent was, I think, critical. Making some of those adjustments to the government, and then the problem, Joe, is number 3 is a tough one for me, because I think what he has done with trade and tariffs has redefined so much of how we view the world, meaning that for so long we were told that we just have to suck it up and accept the fact that everyone gets free access to our market and we don't to theirs. But I kind of also think that what he did to reshape NATO was similar to that. We'd been told, yeah, they have an obligation, but we just need to keep funding NATO and they'll spend their money on other things. I think what he did with Doge was huge. And then I'm just trying to think of I also think the culture thing is big. So this is why there's a bunch of ties for number 3. And what I mean by culture is this. In the first term, I think we seeded culture. And just sort of said Trump didn't go to the Kennedy Center, so whatever. And then I think he realized that old Andrew Breitbart theory that culture is politics is downstream of culture. And so by taking on the Kennedy Center, taking on higher ed, all of these institutions, that he has realized that you can't seed the ground. But let me throw a thing out at you, Joe, that I will just tell you how I generally answer this, because you asked 3. And I've said that there's 3 main differences between Trump 1 and Trump 2. They are the people, the process, and the policies. What I mean is he's got and this is tough to say, but it's true. I think he's got overall a better team who are focused on the mission, who understand that they need to be disruptive, they need to get things done, they need to implement his agenda. That's vastly different than term 1. Number 2, on the processes, and we're seeing this with even the going after the Fed governor earlier this week, they understood the process. You remember when I was there, we fired Comey, and it was like we fired him, and then we're like, okay, what do we do? And we kind of worked backwards. We built the plane in midair after we fired him. What he did with Fed Governor Lisa Cook was he understood that the law was very clear that he needed cause, and he said, okay, great. I have cause. You lied on your mortgage application. You defrauded the government. So that's cause. And I think he's basically laying the predicate for Powell, too. He understood the process. And then the policies, obviously, we saw that these guys, between what they had done in Trump 1.0, is so critically, they had thought through this. They had all of these time in 4 years to really get the job done. So I think the fundamental thing are those things, the people, the process, and the policies.
And we're talking to Sean Spicer. The two-way app is what you want to download to your phone. The morning meeting is a must-listen every day at 9 a.m. Eastern time. I made this argument in my book, and I think I've found a lot of people agree with me. It's almost good in a way that Trump lost in 2020, if you believe that. I'm just sure some people still aren't completely on board that election was on the up and up. But regardless, because if he won, he would have ran into, again, a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, and it would have been impeachment in perpetuity throughout his second term. Now he goes in and he has the Republican House, obviously, Republican Senate. He has a House Speaker that actually works with him in Mike Johnson. That wasn't so much the case with Paul Ryan. And Mitch McConnell, obviously, was the Senate Majority Leader in 2017 when he first took office then. And now it is John Thune. And again, everybody's singing from the same sheet of music. And to your point around having the right team around him, Jeff Sessions was the Attorney General, you may recall, and he recused himself from the Russia investigation. Not exactly a wingman there. Anthony Scaramucci was the Director of Communications for 11 days in the White House. I believe you were still there when that happened, and that was a train wreck. Rex Tillerson was your Secretary of State, didn't really seem interested in the job. Now you look at all the pieces here, whether it's Kristi Noem, whether it's Pete Hegseth, whether it's Marco Rubio. This is a team that he could trust, and that's why, you obviously were press secretary, that White House leaked like a sieve way back when. Now, those leaks really aren't happening anymore at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's a very different team, and that's why they're more effective at getting things done, because they understand the mission. They're on board. To your point about Rex, and no offense to Rex, but like he wasn't there. He didn't know Trump. He didn't have a relationship with Trump. He was like, great, I'm a major CEO. He'd run Exxon, and he thought, okay, I'll run this place. He didn't fundamentally understand that you were there to serve the president to carry thing, not yourself. And the mentality just wasn't there. All the folks at the cabinet, we saw a cabinet meeting earlier this week, they get it. You know what is funny, Joe? I bring this up to people all the time. And you're a special case because you obviously are very in the know, so I can't play the game with you. Okay. But for most people, walk up to them and ask them, can you name a single Biden cabinet secretary? And they'll be like, maybe Pete Buttigieg. I don't know who else. But anyway, most people, whereas in the Trump cabinet, you know all of them because they're out there talking about what they're doing every day. Sean Duffy, Lee Zeldin, Scott Bessent, Howard Lutnick, right? Boom, 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 Pam Bondi. Pete Hegseth. It's like every one of them is out there every day. Doug Burgum talking about the energy, what he's doing in energy to keep us energy independent. I mean, like, you've got just a plethora of these guys. And that's clearly not the case with, it's such a contrast. But every one of them, you can tell they go down. I love these cabinet meetings because they go around the horn and it's like, here's all the great things I'm doing.
Anyway, but we do have to go, unfortunately. But we'll catch up soon, Sean. And then thanks again for joining us on the Sunday of Labor Day. Absolutely. And we'll be back with the Judge Jeanine Tunnel for Towers Foundation show in just a moment, including the great, the one, the only, Jack Ciattarelli, running for governor of New Jersey. He joins us next.
It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show. It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show. Now, here's Joe Concha.
And welcome back. Let's bring in our VIP guest. That is Jack Ciattarelli. He, of course, is running for governor of my home state of New Jersey. Jack, how are you?
Great, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So, I was at the Trump rally in New Jersey, Wildwood, May of 2024, and I wrote a book on the campaign called The Greatest Comeback Ever. And Trump had said something, and you've kind of said something similar, but I'll read it back for you. Basically, what Trump said was, our movement, the MAGA movement, is more powerful than ever before because people now know what the alternative looks like and feels like and the way it governs. And he said, in 2016, you had to imagine what a Hillary presidency would be like. In 2020, you had to imagine what a Biden presidency would be like. He goes, now you don't have to imagine that because you've lived it. You've seen everything from high crime to open borders to endless wars to the Inflation Reduction Act, which did not obviously reduce inflation. And I could go down the litany of legacy items for the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris administration. But I think in the same sense, when you ran in 2021 and we only had something like 40% turnout here in New Jersey for that race, and not a lot of people were paying attention to you on a national level, I think you're not going to be able to sneak up on anybody this time. I think turnout's going to be higher, and I think as a result, now that people have seen the alternative as far as 8 years of Phil Murphy, that they may want to change at this point.
Joe, to your point, as I go around the state of New Jersey, people desperately want change. This is a change election, and I'm the change candidate. My opponent would be 4 more years of Phil Murphy. She's endorsed every one of his failed policies. And as we like to say on the campaign trail, she's Murphy 2.0, whether it's what's going on in public education, handcuffing our local police. Look what's going on with energy in New Jersey, with electricity rates skyrocketing, overdevelopment, our rural suburbs, tax and spend policies that have increased the budget 70%. So people do not want another 4 years. They've seen 8 years of Phil Murphy policies. They don't want Murphy 2.0, Joe.
And we're talking to Jack Ciattarelli. And yes, Mikey Sherrill, when you look at her positions, and I'll just give one example, and I won't even say it's a small example because I think this issue was a big deal in the 2024 campaign for president, where she voted against the Protection of Women in Sports Act. And basically what that was is, hey, we're not going to allow men to compete against women in sports anymore. And unfortunately, I've seen it here in New Jersey with my daughter, who's only 11 years old. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's a boy playing for their team, and there wasn't much we could do about that. So to that point, her vote against that, I would think that suburban women, in particular, when you speak to them, I don't know anybody, Republican or Democrat, that supports that. But apparently Mikey Sherrill does.
Joe, my opponent is trying like hell to portray herself as a centrist. She's anything but. Look at her voting record in the Congress. Twice, to your point, twice, she voted yes to allow biological males to participate in female sports. Now, of course, we want an inclusive environment, but we want a fair environment. There's nothing fair about biological males playing in female sports. That's one of those 80-20 issues in New Jersey. But listen, she supported Joe Biden's open border policies. She supported economic policies that made everything we buy more expensive, voted no on the Lincoln-Riley Act. Wow. So let me see if I get this. You came here illegally, you broke the law once, and while you're here, you committed a crime. So you broke the law twice. We're not going to detain and possibly deport you. She voted no on the Lincoln-Riley Act.
We're talking to GOP nominee for Republican governor, that is Jack Ciattarelli. And that's the thing. I mean, on the Lincoln-Riley Act, how do you possibly vote against outing and ousting illegals who are here in this country who are murdering, raping, hurting innocent people like Lincoln Riley? She was a nursing student just out for a jog at the University of Georgia and was brutally murdered by, I believe it was a Venezuelan illegal that was here. And to vote against that, I don't understand Democrats how, I know they reflexively have to be anti-Trump on everything, but there used to be some commonality and some compromise when we had Tip O'Neill, for example, working with Ronald Reagan in the 80s, or Newt Gingrich with Bill Clinton in the 90s. That Democratic Party doesn't exist anymore. And politically, you look at their polling, they're currently at 19% approval, according to Quinnipiac. I mean, that's as popular as gas station sushi, Jack.
And Joe, when you talk about that party doesn't exist anymore, take a look across the river. What's going on in New York City with this socialist Democrat, Mondami, who, by the way, my opponent endorsed. She's trying to walk it back now, but not completely. Let me say this for Josh Gottheimer, the Democratic congressman out of North Jersey, and John Shapiro, the Democratic governor out of Pennsylvania. They've condemned Mondami, not my opponent. She endorsed him, and then she accepted his endorsement. I'm calling on her to reject that endorsement. This guy's hate-fueled rhetoric only divides our community all the more and makes it more dangerous.
It's just remarkable that we have an anti-Semitic communist who never held a job in his life, by the way. He's only 33 years old, and he may be now, again, a communist running the most complex city in the world that happens to be the financial capital of the world. One would think, and good for Josh Gottheimer. He's actually a former neighbor of mine that lived only a couple of blocks from me up here in North Jersey. So good for him, good for John Fetterman, but there just doesn't seem to be enough moderates that are speaking up at this point out of fear of the left wing of the party. And we're talking to Jack Ciattarelli. I mentioned before the turnout in 2021 in your race against Phil Murphy, around 40%, meaning 6 in 10 New Jerseyans stayed home. How do you improve on that? And is one possible, not complete solution, but a big step could be, will the president and Donald Trump be campaigning with you after Labor Day in the fall when people really start to pay attention?
Part of what happened in 21, Joe, is that it was 12 months after President Trump had lost New Jersey by 16 points. Yeah. So a whole lot of people in New Jersey didn't give me a shot in hell, and that includes people around the country. And so one of the things that we were fighting in 21 was indifference. Because of the closeness of my race and Trump's performance in New Jersey last year, yes, I know it was a loss, but boy, oh boy, he improved by over 10 points and didn't even campaign here. People now know we can win. And I constantly remind people that Republicans have won 6 of the last 11 governor races in New Jersey. So, yes, there are more Democrats than Republicans, but there's 2.6 million unaffiliated independent voters that lean right. They're socially moderate, fiscally conservative, and they want change. And therein lies the opportunity for us, and I intend to capitalize on it. We're going to go 7 for 12 here. I really thought we were going to win it in 21. You saw how close we came. But this one's different. There's a whole lot less indifference out there. I'm not running against an incumbent. And guess what? Over the last 46 months, new Republican registrations have outpaced new Democratic registrations every month. Today, compared to when I ran for governor, there's 100,000 fewer registered Democrats and 200,000 more registered Republicans.
And we're seeing that nationally, right? We see a drop overall, yeah. Jack Ciattarelli, 2.1 million Democrats have dropped out of party registration there, and Republicans have gained 2.4. And to your point, Donald Trump lost by about 5 points in New Jersey, closed an 11-point gap. So certainly the state is turning more red. I guess my question to you is, you said that in 21, not many people gave you a shot. And it's true. I mean, I'm with Fox News, obviously, and I remember that we were scrambling to find maps, of New Jersey where the hot spots were, because everybody was concentrating on Glenn Youngkin and his upset down there in Virginia of Terry McAuliffe. And again, when somebody wins a race by 16 points like Phil Murphy did in 2017, I guess they figure, Jersey, it's a blue state. I don't think we have to pay too much attention to that. And then you were leading most of the night, by the way, until Murphy came back at the end when the city votes magically came in. My question is, will the RNC be pouring a lot more money into this race this time? Because that was one problem. They really also, like everybody else, it seemed nationally, seemed to write this off as just another blue state that's going to go to a blue governor. Will the money be coming in this time?
I can't speak for the RNC or the RGA, the Republican Governors Association, but I would certainly hope so. I mean, there's only 2 governor races in the country this year, us and Virginia. And I do sense there's a lot more attention being paid to New Jersey this time around. People were impressed with our run in 21. And let me be clear, Joe. I mean, we were in it to win it. My run in 21 was not about setting up 25. And I really thought we were going to win in 21. But I'll tell you this time, and whenever the RNC asks and the RGA asks, I tell them that there's something very different this time around. The energy is electric. It's all across the state. And I'm not just talking about Republicans. You're seeing a whole lot of Democrats come out of the woodwork with no fear of retribution that are supporting me. I'm seeing great support with unaffiliated independent voters. I'm seeing support in the black and brown communities that I didn't see back in 21. And that, too, is very, very positive development. And let's not forget, I mean, President Trump won Passaic County. He was up 31 points with Hispanic males, Latino males, and up 16 points with black males all across New Jersey. So, again, I think minority communities are coming to the realization the Democrats take them for granted and continue to make promises that they don't keep.
That's so right about Passaic County, which used to go to the Democrat by 30, 40 points, and then Trump won it by 5 pretty decisively. I'm glad you brought up black and Hispanic voters, because Politico, and I'm sure you saw this, has a piece out this week that says Mikey Sherrill could lose New Jersey if Dems don't win back Black and Hispanic voters. The sub-headline is a political analysis of election results show a path for GOP nominee Jack Ciattarelli, and it runs through the places Sherrill was weakest in the primary. So much like Zohran Mamdani, this is a candidate that has a big problem with what used to be slam dunk votes for the Democratic Party. What are you doing to reach out to those communities? I know we met a few years ago at my brother's business, Paterson, New Jersey, largely minority there, and a great opportunity because college is so expensive these days, and these contractors can get a great education at a fraction of the cost. And, oh, by the way, a job is waiting for them when they get out because there's such demand for it. There's my plug for my brother's business. But you visited, and you were at that. You were there all day, and you spoke to everybody there. That was one way to do it, I'm sure. But I'm sure you're making a more even concerted effort now, given how much illegal immigration has affected these communities.
You know, Joe, I've won 7 races in the state. Yes, I'm a 2-time business owner, full-time, employed people, created jobs here in New Jersey. But along the way, I've also had the privilege of serving 2 terms in the town my grandparents immigrated to 100 years ago, 2 terms in my home county for my whole life, Somerset, and 3 2-year terms in the state legislature. Again, term limiting myself each time. But the point I'm trying to make is I won those 7 elections in a town, in a county, in a legislative district where Democrats significantly outnumber Republicans. And I didn't win because I'm not conservative. I'm conservative in my views. But I go everywhere. I go places other Republicans don't or won't. And I talk about the problems that people are up against and what my ideas are to solve those problems. And that's always worked for me. It almost worked at 21. And we're doing that again here in 25 in minority communities this time. Why? Well, 2 things got in the way back in 21. Number one was the pandemic. You just couldn't get out and about, particularly when there's a shelter-in-place order ordered by Phil Murphy. And we know that the pandemic was particularly acute in urban areas. So we couldn't get everywhere we wanted to because of the pandemic. But I will also say that my opponent, Phil Murphy, was the incumbent. He leveraged the power of incumbency. And in so doing, really shut down the urban centers on me, even when the pandemic was lifted. I just couldn't get in. But this time around, people are welcoming me in. Was in Newark last Saturday. We'll be there again this coming weekend. Was in Paterson the week before, where that major water main break took place, where nobody showed up to show any empathy for what's going on. And my team brought in hundreds of cases of water to help out with the relief effort. So this time around, there's no pandemic. We're getting a warm welcome. But minority communities are waking up to the fact that it's been promises made, promises broken. Look at every promise Phil Murphy made 8 years ago. Educational justice, economic justice, environmental justice, social justice. Show me where there's been progress.
And that's so true. As somebody who lives here in New Jersey, that everything just seems to have gone south. And it would be just amazing if New Jersey voters decided that they wanted 4 more years of this. Jack Ciattarelli, you have a much better political success as far as – I'm sorry, let me do that again. This is a pre-tape, so I can do that. Jack Ciattarelli, your success on the campaign trail far exceeds mine. I ran for president of my class in Wayne Valley, and I lost to a guy named Tom Begley. So that was the end for me. I didn't come back. But you are coming back here in 2025, Election Day, just a few months away, and we wish you the best of luck. And thanks so much for joining us here.
Well, Joe, let me wrap up with saying something. Who was my political hero, Abraham Lincoln, who once said, anybody who hasn't failed hasn't lived. And Lincoln was a profile in perseverance. So I find great motivation in him. But thank you for the time, man. I really enjoyed it.
I like that. That just inspired me. I think I'm going to run for school board or something now. I can't just quit after one. That's true. Thank you, Jack.
Don't you quit on me, Joe.
Ain't happening.
I'm not quitting.
No, definitely not. And we wish you luck in the campaign trail. Thanks, Jack Ciattarelli. Back with more in just a moment.
It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show. It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show. Now, here's Joe Concha.
Welcome back. All right, let's wrap this puppy up. This is the closing monologue. And, boy, so much to work with here, including the fact that our media, boy, they are just as craptastic as it gets now at this point, as far as they're really, really upset that John Bolton, the guy who lied us into so many wars and so many American troops dying, well, now that he's anti-Trump, boy, they are BFFs as far as legacy media and the stash, John Bolton, as far as the fact that he just goes on. I think he has a cot at CNN at this point. I mean, he's on that network like 8 times a day. Like, I think I'm on a lot, and I look up, it's John Bolton everywhere. And that's because his sole job in life right now, in his 60s, is to go on TV and talk about how horrible Donald Trump is. And since he worked for Trump for about 5 minutes, then I guess that makes him an authority in some way, shape, or form. But the bottom line is that Bolton's home was raided because apparently for his book, he took documents from the White House, which is a big no-no. We remember that with Donald Trump. They raided his home over that. And Joe Biden kept documents next to his Corvette in, a private home in Delaware, and that's a big no-no. And Mike Pence did the same thing, the former VP. That's a big no-no. And Hillary Clinton. I could go down the line. This is basically a thing. But the thing is, though, if Donald Trump's home is going to be raided over this, and there was nearly a trial over this, and trust me, if lawfare didn't fail as spectacularly as it did, and we didn't have a couple of sensible judges out there to make sure that these trials never saw the light of day, Donald Trump may be in jail right now and obviously not your 47th president. So they raid Bolton's home. They find a whole treasure trove of documents that he probably should not have had. And I get it that there's a process that says you're innocent until proven guilty, but this does not look good for him right now. And all I know is, way back when, Joe Biden was asked, this was 2023, hey, would you ever weaponize the Department of Justice against Donald Trump? Now, remember, 91 felony accounts. Literally, his number 2 at the Department of Justice left that position, which is a pretty nice position to be in, to go work for Alvin Bragg in Manhattan in that ridiculous trial. Why would he leave and do that unless he was ordered to? Of course. Jack Smith, same thing. Obviously, this guy that was a hired gun to try to take down Trump. Fani Willis met with the White House way back when. No, they didn't weaponize the Department of Justice in any way, shape, or form. And you know why? It's because Joe Biden is honest. At least according to him. This is cut 2. Go.
Mr. President, what do you say to Americans to convince them that they should trust the independence and fairness of the Justice Department when your predecessor, Donald Trump, repeatedly attacks it?
Because you notice, I have never once, not one single time, suggested to the Justice Department what they should do or not do relative to bringing a charge and not bringing a charge. I'm honest.
Had to do the whisper thing at the end. I'm honest. And we know that, well, no, you're really not in any way, shape, or form. Remember when you promised that you wouldn't pardon your son, Hunter? Give him a blanket pardon? Nope, would never do it. Promise it. That's my word. As a Biden, oops, he did that. And then he pardoned something like 7,000 other people on the way out the door, even though he didn't pardon anybody. The auto pen did, and who knows who ran the auto pen. Now, if you want to see how the media is covering this whole John Bolton raid thing, let's go to resident hack over at ABC News. And boy, there are plenty. But Jonathan Karl, who's written not 1, not 2, but 3 anti-Trump books as a senior White House correspondent. Remember, he's supposed to be objective as a correspondent. He's not an opinion guy. No books on Biden for whatever reason, but Karl wrote 3 on Trump. And let's do a little compare and contrast, shall we? This is Jonathan Karl. This will be cut 4, guys, cut 4 on Russia collusion. All right, so this will be the first cut. Let's play that. Go.
So he sees this as an opportunity to, again, portray himself as the victim. This is classic Donald Trump. He spent most of his presidency portraying himself as a victim of the Russia investigation, certainly his impeachments. And now he's portraying himself as a victim of a runaway and politicized Department of Justice.
Oh, okay. So, boy, that was awfully snarky, and Trump portrays himself as a victim. Turns out in the 2024 election that many people saw him that way, as a martyr, as a victim of a weaponized justice system. All right, so let's now go to cut 3 here, guys. And this is Jonathan Karl on the John Bolton raid. And for whatever reason, his tone and perspective has changed, like, really a lot. Cut 3, go.
In a moment, we'll get to the stunning developments coming into the weekend, with FBI agents swarming around the home and office of former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton. But first, the context. This didn't happen in a vacuum. John Bolton is on a long list of Trump critics who are now facing the wrath of President Trump and his Justice Department.
Ah. So now it's being weaponized, but it wasn't before. That's very, very interesting, Jonathan Karl. What can you say? I could give you guys like 1,000 examples as far as the way this is being portrayed in the media. But the good news is that, well, the influence of media is almost non-existent at this point. Well, everybody, thanks so much for joining today. Thanks so much to Jack Ciattarelli, hopefully the future governor of New Jersey, and the great Sean Spicer as well earlier this hour. We'll be back next Sunday here on the Judge Jeanine Tunnel for Towers Foundation show. Everybody enjoy the rest of your Labor Day weekend. The weather is going to be awesome. See you when I see you. Bye-bye.
It's the Joe Concha Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show.